Yeah.
You're probably listening to this on an Android phone right now. And I mean, chances are that same phone probably interrupted you maybe twice before you even hit play.
Oh, almost certainly. Yeah.
Right. Usually when we talk about this, glowing rectangle in your pocket, we're talking about it as the ultimate distraction machine.
Absolutely.
It's the thing that vibrates during dinner, completely fractures your focus, and somehow convinces your brain that watching an hour of random, I don't know, 15-second videos is a perfectly logical use of a Tuesday night.
Well, I mean, it's essentially a pocket-sized slot machine.
Yeah.
The hardware and the software, they are meticulously engineered to fragment our attention. Every notification dot, every tiny vibration, it's an algorithmic tap on the shoulder. It's designed to pull you away from what you were doing and pull you right back into an app. Exactly. But today, we are completely flipping that script. We've gone through this massive stack of research for you.
Yep.
We've got comprehensive workflow guides, productivity app breakdowns updated for 2026, and these really intense digital minimalism blueprints focused specifically on the Android operating system.
It's a lot of material, yeah.
It's a ton. So the mission for today's deep dive is pretty ambitious. We are taking that exact distraction machine and re-architecting it, turning it into this ruthless, frictionless engine for GTD.
Right, GTD, meaning getting things done.
Yeah.
And for anyone who isn't fully steeped in productivity frameworks, that traces back to David Allen's core philosophy. The foundational premise there is that your brain is for having ideas, not holding them.
I love that framing. I really do. Because the goal here isn't just to, throw another digital to-do list at you. Anyone can go download an app.
Right.
What we're looking at is how to fundamentally configure your phone's operating system, your physical habits, and your digital environment. All so your brain can actually stop trying to remember every single little obligation.
Exactly.
But okay, let's unpack this. Jumping straight from a high-level philosophy from a book into the literal settings menu of a smartphone feels like a massive leap. How do we actually bridge that gap?
Well, we have to start at the absolute beginning of the pipeline, really, the entry point. In GTD terminology, this is the capture phase.
Okay.
Before we even consider organizing tasks or planning projects, we have to look at the neurology of how information actually enters your system. There is this golden rule across all the source material we reviewed.
Oh, right, the 5-second thing.
Yes. If capturing an idea takes more than 5 seconds, the entire methodology collapses.
See, 5 seconds, that just sounds aggressively short.
It does.
Because, I mean, my brain constantly feels like a computer's web browser with just way too many tabs open. It's meant for active processing, like RAM, not long-term storage.
That's a great analogy, yeah.
Right. And if I keep too many tabs open, my brain just crashes into overwhelm. But getting a thought out of my head and into my phone usually involves, unlocking it, scrolling to find the right app, waiting for it to load, opening a new note. That takes way more than 5 seconds.
It does. And that time delay is exactly where the system fails.
Hmm.
But not just because you're slow, it's actually because of the visual cortex.
Wait, really? How so?
What's fascinating about mobile interfaces is that even a 2-second delay navigating a home screen exposes you to visual triggers. You unlock your phone with the pure intention of, say, writing down, buy milk for tomorrow.
Sure.
But in those 2 seconds, your eyes catch a red notification badge on a messaging app, or a news alert pops up on your lock screen. Your working memory is hijacked.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that happens constantly.
Suddenly you spent 10 minutes scrolling and you completely forgot about the milk.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. The longer the capture takes, the wider the window for distraction.
Aye.
So how do we bypass that visual minefield entirely?
This is where the open architecture of Android really outshines a lot of other platforms. It allows for deep system-level customization, designed specifically for frictionless capture. One of the primary recommendations in the blueprints is utilizing one-by-one add task widgets.
Placed right on the home screen.
Directly on your primary home screen, yes.
So instead of an app icon that opens the whole program, it's just this tiny transparent button.
Exactly.
You tap it, a keyboard instantly pops up, you type your thought, hit enter, and the keyboard vanishes. You never actually see your task list.
Precisely. You are entering information without ever engaging with the app's ecosystem. The material also highlights the Android share sheet as a massive advantage here.
Oh yeah, the share sheet is huge.
Right. If you're reading an article or an email comes in that requires action, you don't copy the link, open your task manager, paste it, and format it.
Too much friction.
Way too much. You just hit the system-wide share button and pipe it directly to your GTD inbox.
One of the guides even talked about physical button mapping, which I honestly thought was brilliant.
Oh, the voice capture.
Yeah, you can configure your phone so that you don't even look at the screen. You just hold down the power button and say, hey Google, note to self, schedule dentist appointment. And it routes the audio text straight to your task inbox.
It's completely invisible. And they're also dedicated, hyper-focused tools built entirely around this single neurological bottleneck. For example, the sources mention an app called BrainToss.
Brain toss. Okay.
Yeah, it operates as a strict one-way valve. You open it, there's a button for a voice note, a photo, or text. You record your thought, it automatically emails it to your central inbox, and then the app instantly closes itself.
That's wild. It just shuts down.
Instantly. Or another example is using a document scanner shortcut to snap a picture of a whiteboard directly into a Google Drive folder. The underlying mechanism here must be zero friction.
All right, I'm with you on capturing ideas at lightning speed, but let's play out the reality here for a second.
Right.
Let's say I've captured my ideas perfectly. At some point, I still have to unlock this device to actually do the work. And if my home screen is still this casino of colorful icons, I'm going to fall down a rabbit hole the minute I try to check off a task.
Which brings us to the most uncomfortable phase of this transformation, cleaning the digital desk.
Right.
You have to kill the distraction machine at the root. We are talking about completely stripping away the visual triggers that phone manufacturers use to keep you engaged.
The blueprints we pulled are honestly pretty hardcore about this. I mean, they don't just say delete TikTok. They suggest completely ripping out the fundamental user interface of the phone.
Yes, the launchers.
Yeah, replacing the standard grid of colorful app icons with what they call minimalist launchers, things like Niagara Launcher or Before Launcher.
Think about the psychology of a traditional app grid. Every icon is a brightly colored, perfectly shaped little tile designed by a team of psychologists to draw your eye.
Literally designed to be tapped.
Exactly. Minimalist launchers replace that entirely with a simple, stark, text-based list. It hides the vast majority of your apps behind a search bar, keeping only your crucial widgets and immediate next actions visible.
And they pair that with what they call notification zen.
Which is critical.
Yeah, which essentially means going deep into your Android settings and turning off all non-human and non-essential notifications. If it's not an actual human being trying to reach you, or, a hard calendar commitment, your phone should not make a sound or vibrate.
And taking it a step further during deep work, GTD relies on what are called engage blocks.
The actual execution time.
Right, the time you spend doing the tasks.
Yeah.
The recommendations is to tie Android's built-in digital well-being focus mode to these blocks, which aggressively locks you out of any app that isn't pre-approved for work.
Okay, so I have to challenge one specific tactic in the research here because it sounds a little extreme to me.
The grayscale.
Yes. Multiple guides suggest setting up an accessibility shortcut to toggle the entire screen into grayscale, just pure black and white.
I know how it sounds.
Honestly, that sounds miserable. Like I'm actively punishing myself. Isn't a productivity system supposed to relieve stress, not turn my expensive phone into a bleak, joyless utility?
I completely understand why it feels restrictive. But look at the underlying mechanism at play here. It's not punishment. It's neurological protection.
Okay.
We talked about the visual cortex earlier. Those vibrant colors, the specific reds of notification badges, the infinite scroll of photos, they trigger immediate dopamine responses. They are designed to be addictive.
So by stripping the color.
You remove the artificial reward. A grayscale screen shifts your entire subconscious relationship with the device.
Wow.
It moves your mindset from entertainment to utility. When you look at a black and white screen, you don't want to linger. You get in, you find the information you need, and you get out, which is exactly the behavior a GTD machine requires. You start treating your phone like a hammer rather than a toy.
Okay, well, that's a really sharp way to look at it. A hammer doesn't need to be neon pink to drive a nail. I can buy into the utility arguments. So let's look at where we are. The phone is quiet, it's black and white, it's focused. I've been using widgets and voice commands all week to capture every random thought, obligation, and idea into my system.
You've got a full inbox.
Right, but now I have, 85 random half-thoughts sitting in a digital inbox. I haven't actually accomplished anything yet. I've just become a highly efficient digital hoarder. How do I process this without getting totally overwhelmed?
This is where we move from capture to the clarify and organize stages. The workflow demands a daily session, maybe just 5 to 10 minutes, strictly dedicated to emptying that inbox. And the very first filter you pass every captured thought through is the 2-minute rule.
which is, and I love this one, if you look at a raw note and taking the action requires less than 2 minutes, you don't categorize it, you don't file it.
You just do it right then and there.
Yeah. Pay the toll, send the quick text, clear it out.
Exactly. But if it takes longer than 2 minutes, it has to be organized. And the material is adamant about this. Do not invent 20 custom categories based on your mood or arbitrary subjects. You need strict, defined containers.
Right, the classic GTD buckets, inbox, next actions, projects, waiting for, someday maybe, and your reference materials, which on Android usually syncs out to something like Google Drive, Notion, or Obsidian.
These containers matter because they define the exact nature of the information. A project is anything that requires more than one step.
Makes sense.
Waiting for tracks, things stuck in someone else's court. But the absolute most critical container, the real engine of the whole system, is next actions. This is the exact point where most people's productivity systems completely fall apart.
The Gint machine phenomenon.
Yeah.
I was so fascinated by this concept in the reading. The idea is that vague tasks are the enemy of action. If you dump a task into your phone that just says, work on website, you haven't actually made a plan. You've just created a trap for yourself.
You really have.
It reminds me of, well, imagine writing fix car on a sticky note and putting it on your fridge.
A very daunting prospect.
Right. Every morning you get coffee, you see fix car, and you just feel this wave of ambient guilt. Because fixed car is massive and ambiguous. The brain doesn't know what physical action to take, so it chooses anxiety instead of momentum.
That is so true.
But if you cross that out and write, buy a 10mm wrench from the hardware store, suddenly the guilt vanishes. It's a physical, doable action.
That perfectly illustrates the psychology of the next action. High-quality tasks must be physical, visible actions. Work on a website becomes open laptop and draft 3 bullet points for the About page.
Right.
But GTD goes a step further to reduce cognitive friction, utilizing contextual filtering. On a digital device, this is usually done with tags like the @ symbol.
Tagging tasks with at phone, at computer, or at errands.
Think about the mental relief in that. Context tags act as a blinder. They ensure your phone only shows you what you can physically execute in your current environment.
So if I'm not near a computer, I don't see computer tasks.
Exactly. If you are standing in line at the grocery store, looking at your master list and seeing draft Q3 financial report is useless. You can't do it there. It just creates noise.
Yeah, totally.
But by tapping your @phone tag, the app filters out everything except the quick calls or texts you can fire off while waiting in line. You eliminate the mental friction of constantly skipping over impossible tasks.
So to hold all these specific containers, contexts, and tags, you need a central software hub, a command center.
Right.
The 2026 app breakdowns we reviewed highlight a ton of options, but they make a point to say there is no universally perfect app for this. It heavily depends on how your brain naturally organizes information.
The software is ultimately just the vessel. The architecture is what actually matters. But the ecosystem generally fractures into a few distinct philosophies. First, you have the purists. These are apps like Nirvana, Facile Things, or Everdo.
And these are apps where the GTD methodology is rigidly baked into the code, right? I mean, you can't really use them as a simple grocery list.
Exactly. They inherently force you to separate next actions from projects.
What?
What's interesting about an app like Nirvana is how it handles abstract concepts like energy levels.
Oh, right.
You can actually tag a task as low energy or high focus. So let's say it's 4 p.m. on a Friday. Your brain is totally fried. You tap the low energy filter, and the software actively hides all your heavy analytical projects. It leaves you with mindless admin work like organizing receipts.
That is so smart.
Yeah.
Then you have what the guides call the power users. Apps like Tudo or My Life Organized. These are for people who want maximum offline flexibility and incredibly complex logic.
Very robust features.
Yeah, like location-based reminders where the app pings you to buy that 10mm wrench the exact second your phone's GPS registers that you were driving within a half-mile of the hardware store.
It's powerful. For a more modern, frictionless approach, there are the all-in-ones like TickTick and Todoist. These rely heavily on natural language processing, meaning you can just type, call Sarah every first Tuesday at 3 p.m., and it builds the logic for you.
And on the complete opposite end, you have the minimalists, people just linking the basic Google stack together, Google Tasks, Keep, and Calendar. It's totally free, incredibly low friction on an Android, though it struggles a bit with deep multi-step project planning.
Right.
Oh, and for the heavily privacy-conscious, the sources point out MindWR, which is entirely local first, no cloud syncing, so your data never leaves your physical device.
It's a fantastic array of tools, but it introduces very specific behavioral trap.
The shiny object syndrome. I see this all the time. People spend weeks downloading new apps, migrating their data, and color coding tags, and they trick their brain into feeling productive when they haven't actually done any of the work.
It's a huge pitfall.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? How do you avoid that?
The consensus across the material is absolute. Pick one primary task app and do not change it for at least 30 days. Force yourself to experience the friction. And alongside that app choice comes the most critical rule of the entire digital setup.
The calendar rule.
Yes, respect the calendar. Never, under any circumstances, put a wishful to-do list on your calendar.
Because the calendar is sacred territory, it's only for hard deadlines and actual appointments.
Yes, it is the hard landscape of your day. Think about what happens neurologically if you block out 2 p.m. to work on project, but then a fire drill happens at work and you ignore it.
You just skip it.
Right. Do that 3 times, and you subconsciously begin to view your calendar as optional. You lose trust in your own schedule. Tasks stay in the task manager. Time-bound commitments live in the calendar. The boundary must be rigid.
All right, so we've chosen an app, silenced the digital environment, and we're daily processing our inbox into clear, context-tagged next actions. Now, let's talk about leverage.
The automations.
Yeah, how do we make the Android operating system actually do the heavy lifting? Because some of the automation capabilities in these blueprints are just wild.
This is where Android transforms from a passive notebook into an active assistant. By utilizing automation apps like Tasker or MacroDroid, you can program the phone to react to state changes in your physical environment.
I read about the Bluetooth trigger, but I'm trying to picture how that plays out in reality. Is it just throwing a to-do list at me while I'm trying to merge onto the highway?
Not at all. It's about context delivery. Imagine you get into your car after work. Your phone's sensors detect the connection to your car's specific Bluetooth stereo.
Okay.
Tasker recognizes that state change. Without you ever touching the screen, Tasker automatically launches your task manager, filters it, and leaves your @calls list open on the screen. So when you're sitting in traffic, you don't have to remember who you needed to catch up with. The list is already waiting for you.
That is genuinely brilliant. Or setting up a Google Assistant routine so that when you dismiss your 7 a.m. alarm, it automatically reads your hard calendar events for the day out loud while you're walking to the kitchen to make coffee.
Exactly.
It's like having a digital chief of staff.
It dramatically reduces cognitive load. But, and this is a massive but, every single guide, every piece of GTD literature we analyzed is unanimous on one point. All the brilliant Tasker automations and minimalist launchers in the world will not save you if you fail to maintain the final, non-negotiable ritual.
The weekly review. The heartbeat of the entire system.
Without it, the system doesn't just stall. It actively rots. The weekly review requires a dedicated, protected 30 to 60-minute block on your calendar, maybe Friday afternoon as you wind down work, or Sunday evening as you prep for the week.
And what are we actually doing during that hour? Just reading the lists?
No, you are doing a full system sweep. You completely empty your physical and digital inboxes. You review every single active project to ensure it has a valid next action.
Okay.
You review your waiting for list to see who you need to follow up with. And crucially, you delete dead tasks. Things you captured 2 weeks ago that you realize in the cold light of day, you were simply never going to do.
It's like, well, imagine running a commercial restaurant kitchen. You can spend $50,000 on the best industrial ovens, Japanese steel knives, and custom prep stations. That's your apps, your widgets, your automations.
Right.
But if you don't stay late on a Friday night to scrub the grease off the counters, take out the trash, and sharpen the knives, the health inspector shuts you down. The kitchen becomes toxic.
That's a perfect way to put it.
The weekly review is scrubbing the counters. If you skip it, your system becomes a toxic mess of outdated information and you can't cook the next meal.
That is the exact dynamic at play. We call it the discipline gap. When you skip the review, you begin to doubt if your system is actually holding all your commitments. And the second you lose trust in the digital system, your organic brain tries to take the job back.
And that's when you start waking up at 3 a.m. in a cold sweat, suddenly remembering an email you forgot to send to your boss.
Precisely. That 3 a.m. panic is the ultimate symptom of a broken GTD machine.
Yeah.
Getting things done is not a software setup. It is a habit of consistent reflection.
Well, the goal is definitely to sleep through the night without thinking about emails. So let's zoom out and look at the whole architecture we've built today.
It's quite a journey.
We started by taking a device engineered to distract us and turning it into a frictionless capture tool using widgets and share sheets. We silenced the visual noise by applying minimalist launchers and grayscale displays.
We cleaned the digital desk.
Right. Then we learn to process those thoughts immediately with the 2-minute rule, translating vague guilt into physical next actions, and wrapping it all in a weekly habit of reflection to keep the engine clean.
It is a radical departure from how 99% of people use their devices. Yeah. But once that architecture is trusted, your phone finally works for you instead of the other way around.
It truly becomes an ultimate second brain. Which actually brings me to a final thought I want you to ponder on your own after this deep dive ends. We started this whole conversation with David Allen's premise that your brain is for having ideas, not holding them. So let's say you do this. You build this flawless GTD machine on your Android. It perfectly remembers every task, every brilliant idea, every mundane errand.
Everything is captured.
What actually happens to your organic mind? When you completely empty your head of stuff to do, does that newfound empty space simply fill up with peace? Or does it open the door for a completely different kind of unfiltered creative thinking that you haven't experienced since you were a kid? Let that marinate.
That is the true promise on the other side of the friction.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into re-architecting your digital life. Keep questioning, keep learning, and go start building your machine.